Today on CityCast Portland, we're talking about sourcing cannabis ethically, REI leaving the city, and how a Portland police officer lost his job twice. Joining me for our weekly news roundup is Brianna Wheeler, writer and host of Willamette Week's Dive podcast, and our very own lead producer, John Notariani. It's Friday, April 21st. I'm Claudia Meza, and this is what Portland's talking about. John, Brianna, thanks so much for joining me today.
Yeah, thank you.
Absolutely. Thank you for having me.
Before we jump in, I wanted to ask you both a question so our listeners, could get a feel for who's in the room. Have you both heard of the Mount Tabor Soap Derby? Soap
Of course.
Box Derby. You know what I'm talking about, John? Have any of you been to it?
I've never been, actually, but I've seen it online.
No, I've never been either.
You guys, you have to go.
I
It's
know.
magnificent. It's like adults with way too many resources creating these soapbox racers, that like usually hold a few adult men or women. So they're just like very large and they're always very well curated. Like they're themed, like someone once made the Simpsons couch and
I
everyone
remember
dressed
that.
up. Do you remember? And everyone dressed up like a character and sat on the couch and raced down this freaking urban volcano. It's crazy, right? So this year, some friends and I are planning and taking part.
Are you?
Yeah,
Nice.
yeah. So we have a concept. We're thinking it through. But it made me wonder. And the only reason I'm taking part, by the way, is because I have an engineer friend. If I had if it was all radio people, we would just be not there. Can you imagine, John? We were just like,
You'd be
let's
on the
do that.
sidelines just
Yeah,
recording
a bunch
the
of
wheels as they go
journalists.
by.
Brianna, do you want to make it? Yeah, we would. That soapbox would fail like 2 feet in. I mean, if we even had anything to show for ourselves. But
Radio engineers of the world, thank you so much for making us, for helping us survive.
I know. But anyhow, so it made me wonder, like, okay, if other people had this luxury of having an engineer friend, like, what would be your concept? So what we're planning on doing is possibly doing the, might be too ambitious, but we're thinking of doing Wayne's World, like that little gremlin car and like blasting, Bohemian Rhapsody. Because it's easy to get the little hat, get the, wigs. And there's usually 3 people in the back, and the guy who's throwing up, we might not have him, but like we're all headbanging going down the hill. I think it's gonna work out. What about you, Brianna? What would be your soapbox?
Gosh. Well, you took Wayne's World, which is an amazing
Not my idea,
concept.
by the way. That's an amazing concept. I just want to give it up. It's Tiffany Kamhai, who's the local host for All Things Considered. That was her idea, and I think it's brilliant. But Brianna, what would yours be?
Well, I think that I would take a note from my personal hero, Rihanna,
Okay.
and I think I would do a giant spliff, right? Like a big joint.
Oh, I love this. Yes.
Because we could put a few people in a joint and it could kind of look like a boat, sort of. I think
Yeah.
that'd be.
Oh, I see. So
That'd
there'd
be
be
me.
little seats. What would you guys kind of like be the personification of smoke blowing back? Like, would you guys have like wigs that look like smoke, or like what would you guys be dressed up as in the split?
We would be dressed up in different eras of Rihanna.
Love it.
I would be most recent Rihanna. I would be Super Bowl Rihanna. Just super comfy.
Yeah.
Like, whatever. I'm just here.
Super Bowl Rihanna is the best Rihanna. And like, it'd be so cool if the way you stopped is you like took out a really big umbrella, and you just let it drag. Like a cartoon, and that was like your parachute was like an umbrella looking thing.
Oh my gosh. And we could have a horn and it goes, Ella, Ella,
Ella.
eh.
Love it. John, what about you? What would be your thing?
I'd keep it Portland. I would put my engineer friend to task, and I'd want to do Hawthorne Bridge. I'd want to have like a giant Hawthorne Bridge going down the hill, but I would want it to actually have the bridge lift as well. So I would want to be able to like shoot the like place where the person is sitting up as we're going down and like do the bridge lift. And then we could stop in the middle of the course and block everybody and do the bridge lift and create a traffic jam.
Yes! John,
I'm gonna
that
need
is
a really
brilliant.
like high class engineer to make this happen. But like,
That is brilliant. I want this for you, John. That
Me
is
too. That's
brilliant.
great.
That
if
is
there are any
so good.
engineers out there that want to take on a challenge, hit us up. Portland at citycast.fm.
Oh my God, that's amazing. Yeah, that would win. That would win because
Yeah.
there are
Because nobody could get past us.
No, exactly. It would win the time races. It's so funny. Oh my God. Okay. So Brianna, I think this is your first time, so welcome to our Friday roundup.
Thank you very much for having me.
Yeah. So each of us, the way it works is each of us brings a Portland story to share from this week's headline. Since you're our guest, could you start us off?
Sure. So my headline that I wanted to share this week comes from the 420 issue of Willamette Week.
Mhm.
And this week, it's actually a piece that I wrote. My focus for this cover package was buying weed ethically. What does it mean to buy weed ethically? How can we be ethical about the choices that we're making when we buy weed? And things that we want to remember about this cannabis industry in Oregon, things that we need to keep in mind when we are buying weed. So right off the bat, it's really important to always keep in the front of our mind that smoking cannabis is a revolutionary act. Using cannabis is a revolutionary act. Growing your own medicine, not using drugs or alcohol and instead opting for marijuana. These are all really, revolutionary acts. And there are communities that have been hugely impacted by the war on drugs. Black and brown communities have been absolutely they really got the worst end of the war on drugs. And a lot of that comes down to marijuana. And we have to keep these facts about this industry in the front of our mind. That kind of the bigotry, the racism that was cultivated during the war on drugs, that still lingers today in this industry. And it's really, Oregon, y'all know Oregon's reputation. I'm not blowing anybody's mind by saying that Oregon has a deeply bigoted, deeply racist history.
What?
Sorry. Were you sitting down? I hope you were sitting down when I said that. Now, while we have this, this terrible legacy, we also have a legacy being at the forefront of cannabis. We were the first state to decriminalize it in the 70s. So we've always had cannabis culture here. So what we're facing now is this rough juxtaposition between a legacy of therapeutic cannabis and a legacy of terrible institutional racism. So simple, easy ways to make sure that we're not keeping that going and instead fostering a really equitable space. One thing that we can do is always support our BIPOC manufacturers, our farmers, our BIPOC women farmers and manufacturers and shop owners. And another thing, it takes, 5-10 minutes, probably not even that long, to find out if your favorite dispensary is involved with their community. Are they giving back to their community?
Right.
Yeah, one of the things that I found really interesting in your article was some of the places that you listed, right? You actually go through and brought up a number of shops that are BIPOC owned, that are community involved. And I was wondering if you could tell us about one of those places and what it is that they're doing that's different.
Yeah.
Absolutely. I will talk about Green Muse all day.
That was the one I was looking at too. Yeah.
I don't even need an excuse to talk about them. Anytime anyone asks me visiting from out of town, what dispensary should I go to? That is the dispensary I send them to. So Oregon, we have this reputation. We have a very glossy boutique dispensary jam. That's our vibe. And we have set that standard, and it is the envy of other markets. Now, Green Muse definitely has that glossy boutique vibe that we want. It has that energy, but it's also in the Black community, or it's in a historically Black community that has been radically gentrified. So they kind of are this necessary tether to that community. And they're also, in addition to being just a really cute dispensary, they're like a little hip hop museum. They sell records in there. They've got all of this great memorabilia. So it is just an entirely different energy, an entirely different vibe, but still it's what you want when you go to a dispensary in Portland. It's everything that you want. And also, they're playing jams. They're partying in there.
Yeah.
You can buy records. You can look at old, tape decks. It's just a really great energy. So I think that's just at the top of my list for sure.
Yeah. I've walked by it and it just looks like there's a house party going on sometimes. Like I've literally been like, wait,
Seriously?
Are they selling stuff in here? Because everyone's just like vibing outside. Like all that's
Totally.
missing are like the little red cups, But that's a solid vibe if you want to, you're just like, hey, I'm having a good time.
Yeah. It's very like, I get the feeling of like, I'm walking up to my pot dealer's house when I walk, because it is like, it's in a house. Like they retrofitted a house for it. So it's just a great energy.
Pretty cool.
Yeah, I think it's so interesting because it feels like, at least to me, it feels so normal to have legal cannabis at this point. It's just sort of totally adjusted to the reality of that being a part of our lives. But I mean, wasn't there a situation where last year the governor pardoned like 40,000 people that had like a tiny conviction before the law had went into effect, right? It's only been since 2016, and there are all these people who are in our community that had still had like on their record an ounce or less of possession, even though it's completely legal at this point, and they were still living with the legal ramifications of having that charge until like December of last year, right?
Yeah. And for anybody out there that does still have that on their record, expungement clinics are happening all over the city.
Nice.
And Oregon is actually kind of ahead of the curve as far as expunging records. I was talking to a lawyer with the Last Prisoner Project, which is a nonprofit that is, they will resign that business when there are no more nonviolent offenders in prison for cannabis offenses. Like that's their whole MO. And she was Oregon's great. Yeah, they got right in front of that as soon as recreational legalization happened. They got right in front of expunging records. And there's clinics at PCC, the community college. There's the Cannabis Workers Coalition. They do clinics. So even if you somehow escaped the mass expungement, there are still ways to get those crimes expunged from your record.
That's great.
Well, I to go from that into something totally stupid, I was looking at something that I saw that Portland is the top cannabis city in the country, according to like some fake online survey of like, how like online they're like Portland is number one of this and that, and they have some like fake statistics. But the one statistic that did jump out at me is one of the reasons that they say that Portland is number one is because we have some of the most Taco Bells per capita in the country. There are 11.2 Taco Bells per 100,000 people in Portland.
So
Seattle,
that makes it okay.
Seattle, number of Taco Bells that they have per 100,000 people, only 4.6.
Wow. I feel like the title should just be we have the most Taco Bells per capita. That's a lot of
drugs at Taco Bell.
That just means that
they really buried the lead.
Yeah. Can you look at the bottom? Does it say sponsored by Taco Bell? Can we just scroll up a little?
What Taco Bell franchise wrote this?
I know. It's brilliant though.
Yeah. If you like Taco Bell, don't go to Baltimore. Very few Taco Bells in Baltimore, apparently.
Oh, they must not smoke weed there.
They must not. They must not have any weed in Baltimore, is what I'm hearing.
I mean, based on their Taco Bell stats.
All right, let's take a quick break here, and when we come back, more headlines of the week. John, what's your story this week?
Yeah, gosh, I've been so interested in this story about the REI in the Pearl District announcing that they're closing, right? So there's been this REI in the Pearl since like 2004. And they came out this week and said that the store in Portland, and I'm quoting, had the highest number of break-ins and thefts in 2 decades, despite actions to provide extra security. So it says that it's going to be closing this location early next year because of crime. And they have had a number of break-ins. They said they had 10 burglaries last year. You might remember on Black Friday, REI always closes, and someone drove a car through the front door of REI.
I remember that. Yes.
Yeah.
I mean, that's a little much.
Yeah.
Breaking a window. Driving your entire car in?
It's dedication. But to me, it's just like a really interesting, another layer in this question of like, what's going on with crime in Portland? And it is actually a little bit more complicated than it looks like at the very start. But yeah, what do you guys think about that?
I'm wondering if you could draw a line from this kind of uptick in, or like what REI was experiencing and Renee Gonzalez taking over Portland Street Response and them cutting off that tarp and tent program that they had. Like Street Response was handing out tents and tarps.
Right.
And now they don't. And then REI is getting absolutely plundered. So I'm wondering if there's like a connection between those things. Do you know what I mean?
It took me a minute, but I got you.
So you're
now.
saying that car drove in and just took a bunch of tents, is what you're just all the tents.
What else do they have there?
Yeah.
What's their point?
They have emergency hiking food, which might be another thing, like
very
dehydrated
emergency
food,
hiking
very
food,
expensive.
Yep.
Yeah. No, I mean
jackets, blankets, yeah.
Yeah, exactly. It does seem like that would be the place to hit. Like if you're in this like post-apocalyptic mindset, you have nothing, right? You're living on the street. Yeah, you're going to hit an REI. But did you guys hear the twist? The plot twist of this story is that a lot of workers have come out and stated that like so we were about to unionize. It's kind of interesting that they're closing the store, and that's their official statement when they've cut our hours so severely that we have like a food pantry in one of the offices because we're coming to work hungry. Like basically, like we've gotten screwed, and now now 120 of us need to find a new job. And the statement and what they were saying is that REI was just like no guaranteed jobs. Just like they're welcome to apply to all of the other REIs in Oregon,
that's so
which is
rude.
like to me that just means like they were like, and a fuck you. You know what I mean?
Absolutely that.
Yeah.
Yes. Very
Yeah.
that.
Yes,
So
and that's why I think that that's why this story pisses me off, because I think we've seen a lot of businesses that have been deciding to close and have been like, it's because of crime.
Right.
But then when you dig into it and it's like, well, no, actually there's something else going on, right?
Yeah.
Like Walmart made a big show of saying we're closing because of crime. And then you dig into it and it's like, well, actually, like we passed really progressive taxes on companies whose CEOs make way more than their employees that was aimed directly at Walmart. So like maybe it wasn't just crime, why
Right.
did you only pull out of Portland where like these laws have been passed? And I feel like this is the same thing. My question is whether they're just scapegoating this crime issue, which I think is real, and sort of putting it on that so that they don't have to deal with the sort of stickier reasons why they might be moving out.
So I live close to the Walmart in Delta Park. So right before it closed, I was like, I want to see what it's like in there right now. What does it look like right before a Walmart goes under? And it was creepy, but it was definitely like ghostly. But what struck me the most was all the workers were just very openly talking about, I don't know what I'm going to do now. I don't know where I'm going to go. I don't know what I'm going to do. How could they do this to us? What? And so I went in there thinking like, ha ha, Walmart, ha ha, and left just absolutely heartbroken. I felt like kind of an asshole for being like a spectator about it, but that was a little bit of shitty insight.
Yeah, and at this REI store, it employs, I think, 150 people. So there are,
my gosh.
Come next year, there's a lot of people that are going to be in a tough spot.
And they're really good at their job. Like, I don't know if you've ever gone there to look for something. Like, I'm a ding dong. Like, I don't know anything about anything when it comes to being outside. And they're so helpful. And that REI was different because they're not like, you need this $5,000. They're just like, all you're going to need is this and this. See if you like it. Come back. We might get you something bigger next time. I don't know. Just so sweet. I really loved going to that REI.
Yeah.
Brianna, didn't you have a story about some outdoor store turning into a cannabis store?
Yes. As a matter of fact, the U.S. Outdoor Store, that's like proper downtown. So the Southwest. Broadway Cannabis Co. took it over. And they've got designs to like, they're going to rejuvenate the area. They renovated the building. It looks gorgeous. So they really want to like spread that out into the neighborhood, and they're trying to like herald the new era of downtown.
Oh my God,
REI
I love
employees hit it up.
Hey. Look at us just solving problems. John, look at that. Look at us.
Just solving problems.
Just solving problems. People are like, they talk a lot. No, man, we're solving problems. Well, I'd like to share my story. Brianna, this is your first time here, but something about me that John already knows a lot about is that I love high drama and irony. So my story this week comes from a reporter named Lucas Manfield at the Willamette Week, where you work. And I mentioned him. Okay. So I'm mentioning him because this is like his story. Like he investigated this, and I, hats off with him. So early this week, Lucas discovered that Portland police officer Brian Hunziker was also working as a sheriff's deputy in Washington state for like months, and nobody noticed. And I didn't know this, but I guess you can't patrol in 2 different states or cities and not tell anyone. So he had to resign from the Portland Police Bureau, and Clark County, Washington has put him on administrative leave. So dude had 2 jobs, now he has none. And that's not the full story because Hunziker.
Yeah, who's this Hunziker guy? That name sounds familiar.
I mean, do y'all remember this guy?
Who is this guy? I seem to recall another story about Brian Hunziker.
Hunziker. Well, he used to be the president of the Portland Police Union until he was fired last year by his boss and mayor, Ted Wheeler. Do y'all remember why he was fired? Because do you remember this? When this went down, it was just like,
I remember, but please remind us.
Claudia.
Okay. Well, it appeared that he was trying to set up then Commissioner Joanne Hardesty, who was a really vocal critic of the police department, by leaking an uninvestigated 911 dispatch report of a hit and run to the press. And I think it was to the Oregonian specifically, and I am pointing fingers because they also were just like, thank you, and then just published it without a second look, which I understand. Like, you're like, a cop is giving me this, they must not be lying. So what happened was this lady called 911, told a dispatcher that she was confident Hardesty had rear-ended her vehicle at an intersection and then fled the scene. And Hunziker was alerted of the report, did 0 investigating, even though there were traffic cameras everywhere, and that's eventually how they found the actual perpetrator. And was just like, good enough, leaked it to the Oregonian, and was like, got her. And that was that. But Hunziker didn't even do the most basic research because Hardesty not only did she have proof that she was like nowhere near that scene, but she didn't even have a working car for like a year. Like she driven literally like less than 2 weeks later, there was another report that she was rude to a Lyft driver, and it's like, yeah, she be lifting. She doesn't drive anywhere. Sorry. So obviously it was embarrassing for the police department because they looked like clear retaliation and abuse of power. Yeah. He was fired. And I guess somewhere in between then, he got a job at Clark County, Washington, because that's where he lives. He lives in Washington. It just doesn't make sense. And I mean, he got fired, and then the whole time he was trying to get back. So of course, the reason he got fired again from the Portland Police Department is because he got hired again. He was reinstated in February. Some arbitrator was just like, hey, he was fired under political reasons, which to this day, I'm just like, the political reasons he was hired for political reasons, his political reasons.
Yes. And I will say, okay, so there was an arbitration, right? There was an arbitration between the Portland police and the city over his firing. What is the organization that does arbitrations? Is that the Portland Police Union that he used to be the president of?
Yes, I'm pretty sure it was the Portland Police Union that brought him back in.
Just pointing that out.
Yeah, just a handful of months of him. So of course, when that happened in February, there were a ton of community advocates and just members, just people on the street with reasoning skills, being like, that doesn't seem right. That seems a little weird. We don't like this. But they were like, too bad. And Mayor Ted Wheeler had to walk back and just be like, well, this is what's happening. I just hope that people trust us again, because this all sucks. This all sucks. So he comes back in, and then this is the irony, that this is how he goes out, is that people were just like, so you had 2 jobs? The dumbest reason to get fired.
Honestly, after everything that dude did, moonlighting is what brought him down?
Yeah, moonlight.
After everything that he put us through.
I know.
Moonlighting is what took him out.
Oh,
there's a great sitcom episode in here.
You think so?
Yeah, of him trying to be like, oh, I'm in Washington. Oh, I'm in Portland.
Oh, I see what you're saying. But he was cashing paychecks for 2 near 6-figure salaries without someone noticing. And I hope this is the last chapter of the Hunziker saga. Like, if he comes back for some freaking reason,
gosh.
jeez Louise. At this point,
That's
it means
zombie
that
shit.
yeah, that's some political zombie shit right there.
Political zombie shit.
But I'll end with this. I feel like this is yet another solid.
Sam
reason.
Adams did it.
Oh, Brianna just like left the screen.
I do think it's going to be interesting though when we have this expansion of city council. Like, there's going to be a lot more seats on city council, and I'm
It's
sure
true.
that we're going to see all sorts of like
just people
political
coming through.
ghosts from the past being like, me again, you know?
Yeah, yeah.
There's going to be all sorts of greatest hits of like,
And they won't need that many votes to get through either.
Yeah,
So it could be a real clown show.
I feel like I think that we should just coin it now. Brianna, you should definitely like TM that like a political zombie act. I love the word of like being like, oh, he's zombie. Like using it in that way where someone comes back like, oh, I thought you were dead. It's like, no, I am Wiener and I am back. You know, it's like, why are you back?
Me.
Nothing will bring me down.
oh my gosh. I hate to be in just like pile-on mode, but there was like one more detail in this story that just flipped my brain. It's he wrote, the Portland Police Bureau has so far been unable to explain what duties Hunziker was actually assigned since returning to payroll.
Yeah, that's what I was.
The Bureau has simply stopped responding to Willamette Week's emails.
Yeah.
So it's like, what, you know, there is documentation of what he was doing in Washington, but like in Portland, they're just sort of like, I don't know, he was doing police stuff.
He was coming in and picking up a check.
Yeah, totally.
But also, I feel like this is yet another solid reason why the city should require officers to live within city limits. And I know that sounds crazy. It's mind-boggling, but I think it might benefit the quality of policing because like it feels a lot of people are always like it feels like the police don't care about Portland. We call them, they don't come, and maybe it's because they don't freaking live here and they don't have any investment in our community. They're all from Washington. The Portland Mercury did a data study in 2021 and found that only 18% of all sworn officers employed by the Portland Police Bureau actually live in Portland city limits. More officers are living in Washington state than in Portland. And I feel like my piece here is like, why do we keep doing this?
Yeah.
I don't know.
Yeah. I mean, there has been a situation where they have a ton of unfilled roles, right? Like they've had a hard time getting enough people to fill the ranks of the open positions in the police department as well. And like, I get it. Like, I understand why a lot of people would not want to be a police officer in Portland right now. But yeah, I mean, the whole idea of having people who live outside of the community and then coming in and only having a relationship to the community that involves crime.
Yeah,
you know?
through the worst part.
Like,
yeah.
you go to work and like work is crime. Like that doesn't, it's just not a good recipe for like
a compassionate, empathetic peace officer, which is not what we're getting.
Right.
Yeah.
Yeah. Sorry, guys. Sorry to bum us all down, but it is part of my job.
It's okay. We had some laughs.
John's remembering the good times.
Had some good times, you guys.
Remember the weed?
Yeah, I remember the weed. I totally remember the weed.
Remember the bridge?
Yeah. John, do you remember
Bridge cart?
the bridge? That was really funny. Yeah.
This is the bridge sound. That's like going up.
Yeah.
This is how they go down.
That's very good. Yeah. I love that. Yeah. Well, guys, thanks so much for joining me today. Brianna, anytime, come back, talk to us about anything you're working on. John, I'll see you in 15 minutes. We worked. I'll see you on Slack, slacking you right now.
All right. Thanks, Claudia.
That's all for today here on CityCast Portland. Our lead producer is John Atariani. Our audio producer is Julia Fiaioni. Our newsletter editor is Rachel Monahan. And our host is me, Claudia Meza. Special thanks to Natalie Rivera for her production help this week. Original music by Jenny Conley and Steven Drizos. Additional music by Epidemic Sound. We'll be back Monday morning with more from around the city. Until then, see you at Slim's.